What's up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take MLB First Look podcast. I'm your host, CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And we've got a massive 15-game slate to take a look at for Tuesday, July 6, 2019. Just looking at it for the first time, we do have a lot of strong SP1 pitching. Not a lot of the cheaper guys that I like tomorrow, which makes me think in tournaments I may have to look towards some of the cheaper stacks, but there really wasn't a ton of cheap guys that I felt comfortable with. We'll start at the top. We'll start with the cash games as we always do. Clayton Kershaw certainly seems like a viable cash game option against the Cardinals. Cardinals starting to get healthy, but they have been, rough offensively. I think Kershaw is certainly fine, but Wheeler may be the safer option if you consider opponent going up against Miami. Miami's been fairly pesky, but they are still Miami. Wheeler is at home. The Mets have been red hot. 1-2, both of the doubleheader games yesterday against Miami. So I think Wheeler does make sense, and he's $1,200 cheaper than Kershaw. So for now, I think I'll roll with that. As far as the SP2s, there again, it's just really not pretty. Yarbrough is certainly interesting. He is in, long relief position, so you always run the risk of, issues with his pitch count, whatever, what have you. But you can see he just saw Toronto in Toronto, put up a 19. This time he's going to be at home in Tampa, which is an even better park. So I think he's an option. On the cheap, again, not really any cheap dudes that I feel comfortable with. I think the next guy that I go to here is probably either Zach Plesac, who did well today. Whose teammate did well today against the Rangers. I don't think Plesac is very good, or I don't think he's great, but Texas does strike out a ton. I think my preferred option would be to go with Dinelson Lamet, 8,500. Hasn't looked all that great lately, but has a matchup with Seattle, strikes out a lot. Aaron Sanchez had a very good game against them, and they're going to be in a good park out in Seattle. So I don't know. I feel more comfortable with him. That could be somewhat of a bias thing. I am familiar with Lamet, played him a lot before he got hurt. But I think Wheeler-Lamet would be my preferred combo. And again, as you can see, not a ton of money to work with for the cash game bats, but I'd pay attention to value and try to find a way to make it work. But again, I think there are other options that you can consider. Sorry, I've been trying not to yawn. I do these things so late sometimes I'm just exhausted. We got the new show launching, grinding MLB all day, doing, just got a lot going on, preparing for football. Busy season, baby. Every season, busy season for me. You know how we do at the Nation. All right, so from a tournament perspective, I still like Wheeler. I think Kershaw is a little more interesting that way. Barrios would be very low owned. We like to play him at home, but Atlanta's just too damn hot right now. I can't do it. He's coming off a awesome game, but can't do it. Greinke should be interesting against Colorado. This will be his first start for Houston, so he's been solid, fairly safe for the most part, and we know Houston has a tendency to fix pitchers, or at least just to make them better in general. Not that Greinke was broken, but he's older, not as dominant as he once was. So I think he's interesting against the Rockies. I don't see a ton in that mid-range that I love. We talked about Yarbrough, Plesac, some of these guys. Maybe working a Menez. Washington does not strike out a lot against lefties, but the park is huge. Yeah, just not a ton that I feel comfortable with. Jake Junis is kind of interesting. Boston does seem to be struggling at the moment outside of Bogarts. I just hate the ballpark, and I'm not a huge Junis guy, but we know he does have ceiling, though it's typically in really good matchups. But again, I just don't love it. So again, the Wheeler Lamet combo seems like something I'm going to get me some of tomorrow. As of now, it's a first look. We'll see what happens. As far as offense goes, well, I guess one more pitcher I could have mentioned is LeBlanc. It's 50-50. It's the Padres, but he's really cheap, $5,600. So I guess he would be the cheapest that I would consider even. Not that I would even pitch him, but I would consider. Oh, it looks like Cortez is going to be here. he's a possibility. He hasn't really thrown too many innings lately, but hasn't been very good either. But it is Baltimore. I guess maybe if you were desperate enough. But anyway, I think that is. I guess the first thing we should do is kind of identify like the chalkier offenses. I think Cleveland will be one of them against Uardo, who throws a lot of sinkers. Cleveland is a pretty good sinker ball hitting team. They are home. I think we're going to have a good hitting environment there too. So I think Cleveland should be fairly popular, and they make sense. I think that. You know who I didn't talk about with the pitching for tournaments? Asher, right? Asher Woj. Did not do well against Toronto. Yankees are pretty hot, but they're banged up. So we have to take a look and see what the lineup looks like. Could be a more strikeout-heavy lineup. He could be interesting in tournaments. The park is god-awful, though. Baltimore. Anyway, all right, back to it. So we talked about Cleveland. I think Tampa Bay at home is interesting against Thornton. They've beat him up before this season. I think they could do it again, even though it's a big ballpark. I don't think Thornton is actually very good, and I think the Rays are playing fairly well at the moment. The D-backs could be interesting against Arrieta, the lefties. He has been somewhat of a troll a couple times against Pittsburgh, San Francisco, but all in all, still not doing very good and struggling with lefties. But I think Fulte is one of the more interesting spots on the slate. So he was hurt, came up, and just seemed broken. Just started getting wrecked. The last start he made in the majors was against Washington. He gave up 8 earned in 4 innings. Only 1 home run, but he's been struggling. Had a good game against Philly. Everybody has a good game against Philly. They suck. But he gets the Twins. Really, really good offense. Really, really good home run hitting offense. Scary situation for Fulte. So I do think Minnesota could be pretty popular too as well. But again, I mentioned like if I were to go with this spend up, unless I open up to some of these cheaper guys, which I may tomorrow. Some of these cheaper guys, depending on the lineups we see, umpires we get may open up. But if I were to do a Wheeler-Lamet combo, I think in tournaments it would kind of force me on to like an Oakland, who is very cheap today. And I don't mind it. The wind's not blowing out like it was in the previous slate, but it's against John Lester, who I don't think John Lester is very good. And the guys are cheap. You got Ken at 4,100. Piscotty's very cheap. Chris Davis, I know he's been bad, but it's extremely cheap. Chapman's only 3,900. I would play Olsen. I would never skip Olsen. I don't care if it's lefty on lefty. And then again, from here, if Barreto's in the lineup, I don't mind him at 3,500. A lefty masher, even though he's been cold. And of course, you can always go with Semien. He's got some stolen base upside, but you can see the 5-man Oakland fits well with like a spend up build. There are a lot of other good offenses that seem to be on paper at least in really good spots, like the Twins who we talked about, and they're expensive, and that's going to be harder for you to do with a pay up build. That might force you onto some of those cheaper guys, but it's a huge slate, a lot to like. You're gonna have to take a stand. Come rock with us tomorrow with the Wise Take Nation and find out what our guys are on. Come see what it is. Come join the Combo Club. Get yourself a nice win. Again, that's wisetech.com. Don't forget to check us out if you haven't already. We are a premium DFS content provider and community. Real quick, guys. NFL Pass is up. NFL Season Pass Early Hour Special is up. I recommend you take advantage of this. September 1st, the price is going up. You can get the NFL full season for $99. It's $100. You'll get access to the Slack chat, all the NFL content we do for this season. Again, price goes up September 1st, so make sure you take advantage of that deal now. All right, top 3 pitchers for me. I'm gonna go Wheeler. I'm gonna go Lamet, and I'm gonna go out on a limb a little bit here, and I'm gonna say Asher, even though I'm deathly terrified of the Yankees right now. But 6'6", why not? Just for tournaments, of course. But as of right now, Lamet and Wheeler are my preferred. Top 3 stacks. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Twins, the Cleveland Indians, 2 of the more chalkier ones, and I'll go with Oakland as like the value stack for that build that I had already had. Dong watch time, I'm going Nelly Cruz. I know he's expensive, but Fulte has struggled a lot with righties this year, which I think is kind of interesting. I'm going to go with Ketel Marte as well. Also very expensive, and for a value, dude, let's go with Mr. Crush, mother sucking Davis in Oakland, who's been looking a lot more like Chris Davis from Baltimore lately. But yeah, Dong Watch, Marte Cruz Davis. I'm digging that. That's going to do it for today's little quick breakdown. I know some of you had mentioned that you missed the back and forth DFS show we had. We've decided to scale back and put up something a little quicker for you guys to just consume and get your first look. Again, this is a first look. Don't forget to come to wisetake.com and check us out and find out what we are and what we end up on after we've done our research. But, for now, we're going to ride this out for baseball. We got football coming up. We'll have football shows coming up. We do have the new Wise Take Nation podcast, a little more generalized, entertainment sports show. And, a lot of content coming out. So, yeah, I know the DFS show, we love it too, but got to take a little break in baseball. Things can get a little monotonous, slow, it can be really grindy. And again, we got to ramp it up, prepare for football, and then basketball, which is the very busy season for all the DFS players. But rest assured, we're still grinding at MLB. We're just trying to do it in a more smart way. But either way, going to provide you with the first look vids any way we can. So this is what we got to do. This is what we do. We appreciate you. If you're watching on YouTube, please click that thumbs up, that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Facebook, give us a like and a share to support the Wise Take Nation. If you're watching on Twitch or Twitter, give us a follow, give us a retweet. And if you're listening to us on Podbean or iTunes, give us some 5-star reviews. For myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, as always, good luck.
Yeah.